I'd like to thank our reader Nancy Wirtz for the fabulous reading, as well as our CSL music team for the music that so supports the message today. And for the next 4 weeks, my talks are going to be centered around the book, The 4 Pivots by Shawn Ginwright. He has some amazing ideas, and of course, I want to share some of my own ideas with you as well. Ginwright put it this way: a pivot is a small change in direction from a single point where we are. It means that through one small change in direction, over time, we can get to where we want to be. A pivot is not a complete abandonment of what we know, but it braids together what we know with how we feel and who we wish to be. So in the next 4 weeks, we're going to be looking at creating a tapestry of our lives so we can live from that place where we wish we can be. And we do it by looking at the 4 pivots. Today we're focusing on the first pivot, from lens to mirror. And of course, as usual, I have a question for you. What is that one choice you can make today to make one small change to be where you want to be, to cultivate the practice of self-reflection, and to remove any dust that clouds your clarity? One more time. What is that one choice that you can make today to make one small change to be where you want to be, to cultivate the practice of self-reflection, and to remove any dust that clouds your clarity? I want to start by introducing the 4 pivots, and then we'll concentrate on the first one. The first pivot is moving our awareness from lens to mirror, learning to view the mirror world as a mirror of ourselves. The second pivot is shifting our connections from transactional to transformational relationships, cultivating deeper human connections through vulnerability, empathy, and listening. The third pivot is pivoting in vision and visit, from fixing to possibility creating, learning to create entirely new possibilities. And the last pivot is shifting in presence from hustle to flow, transforming our addiction to that frenzy to an existence that is calm and well-being within our lives. So now let's focus on that first one, from lens to mirror. Think about it. A lens of a camera shows us the outer world. We see something in the distance, or even perhaps something up close, and we're looking through our eyes and through that lens to reflect something external to us. On the other hand, a mirror reflects back the truth to you with no judgment and no changes in reality. It is just a reflection of what is. Unless that is, if you're in a carnival with all those crazy mirrors that don't reflect back the truth. But the shift in our awareness from looking through the lens at the external world to looking in a mirror and doing self-reflection is how we see the world changing. I know we've all seen basketball players pivot when they've got the ball. They stop momentarily, notice what's happening, keeping awareness of the players around them, while they're also maintaining focus on that goal without getting distracted. And then they calmly and confidently flow in another direction so as to make their goal. It takes all of those steps to be successful, and for us to be successful in our move to a higher awareness of life. We have to take the time to stop momentarily and notice what's happening. We have to be aware of the people around us and those who might be impacted. We need to focus on our goal, the outcome that we're seeking, without getting distracted. No getting squirreled. And finally, we calmly and confidently flow in the direction that leads us to that outcome. I've told you the story before about the little girl who took 2 pots every day and walked down to the river and got water for her village. Well, one of her pots was cracked, and every day when she got back to the village, she felt sad that she only had like a bucket and a half of water. And her perspective was through that lens of the outer world, that she wished she could do better. And then a wise elder in the village said to her, just pay attention to your walk. So the next day when she was walking down that same path, she noticed that on the part of the walk where she was carrying the cracked pot, there were some gorgeous flowers growing. All of a sudden, she had a different perspective. She pivoted to the beauty that was being provided to everyone who walked that path by that cracked pot. It's easy for us to have a tendency to analyze things rather than to reflect, to point the finger at somebody, even at ourselves, rather than to explore that inner territory or that mirror that shows us the truth. I'm reading a book right now about the Civil War and noticing a whole lot of things that I didn't learn in my history class when I was growing up. And it's giving me an opportunity to recognize all of the historical wounds that still need healing. I say very often that everything is either love or a call for love, and that's certainly what A Course in Miracles teaches. Giving and receiving are the same. Everything I give to myself. So I wonder why it is that we find it so difficult to look into the mirror and see the magnificent being that we are, to give ourselves the same compliments we might readily bestow on our friends or on other people. Ernest Holmes said, "Spirit has placed the stamp of individuality upon itself and called it you." Spirit has placed the stamp of individuality upon itself and called it you. So I'm going to challenge you to look in the mirror and see you, that spirit that's walking the planet as you. Yes, I know reflection can be very difficult work. The good news is it's not very expensive. It certainly takes time, and it takes our willingness to take responsibility for creating the future that we want. And that future is connected to our healing, to our own reflection, to our own well-being. When we're having a challenge, it doesn't do any good to look through the lens to the external world. That challenge and its solution is right within us. A Course in Miracles also tells us to choose peace instead of what is going on in our lives. Just choose peace. I learned recently, when I wasn't choosing peace because I didn't like a lot that was going on in my life, that I didn't like it when I let something steal my peace. It was stealing my inner peace, and I was letting it happen. So when you run into obstacles, what do you have to do? Well, pivot. Do like the basketball players do. Slow down and take some time to reflect. Become aware of what's going on around you. Put your focus on what it is that you want to have happen. And then, calmly and confidently, move in that direction. There are a lot of things happening in the world and a lot of people trying to re-image themselves for one reason or another. To get elected, to be better liked, to feel better about themselves. In his book, Ginwright suggests that if we want to re-image ourselves, if we want to reimagine who we could be, the way to do it is through mirror work, through self-reflection. I'm paraphrasing, but he says that perhaps the real point of our mirror work is to reveal the truth of how we show up for others. And yes, it's also about getting to know ourselves better. How do you go about it? Here's his answer to doing self-reflection. This can happen for us all when we cultivate the practice of reflection, because it allows us to get underneath the hood and explore our motivations, fears, dreams, and insecurities with a sense of curiosity. Reflection also helps us heal some of the wounds that pile up over time in our work and personal lives that we have been refusing to take a look at. We all have wounds. Mine show up sometimes in the weirdest places. An old hurt that has me lashing out over something that's truly insignificant. And I know that self-reflection can help me heal that. I also know that I have to learn to be truthful with myself about the buttons that I've installed because of all of my anxieties and fear from those past hurts. Truth-telling is another important aspect of mirror work. Ginwright says this: truth-telling is the practice of testifying to yourselves and others about what is real and honest from your perspective of the world. Over time, this process builds integrity, the opposite of bullshit, and keeps us emotionally honest about what really matters. Ginwright goes on to say that this type of work can be scary and painful and messy, and he recommends that the only way to learn truth-telling is to do it. How do we learn to do it? Here's the question that he recommends that you ask yourself. What is the truth about myself that I've been avoiding? What is the truth about myself that I've been avoiding? I think we all have things within ourselves that we avoid for one reason or another. The thing is, ask yourself that question and then take a look and claim whatever comes up at the answer. Claim that truth about yourself so that you can begin to heal anything from that past. Sure, we would all like to be able to change systems, to change some laws, to change politics, to change policies, and it begins with us changing ourselves. The external work is certainly necessary, but the internal work can't be separated from that external work. When we fail to tell ourselves the truth about what we believe and what matters to us, we're hiding from that mirror of life. Where in your life are you avoiding something? Maybe because it's painful, or it feels impossible to achieve, or fruitless to spend your time on it. Ginwright also wrote, most of the time, the thing that stands in the way of our truth-telling is the fear of being hurt, formed, or rejected. It's natural to protect ourselves and those we care about from something that could be harmful. That's how we learn to bend the truth to ourselves and to others. But we also have to ask ourselves, what is the cost of leaving your personal life at the door when you go to work? How does it feel when you can't be yourself when you work with others? Chances are that you've wrestled with that false separation between the personal and the professional. Practicing vulnerability just means that we feel safe enough to say what we feel. But vulnerability also involves courage to say or listen to what's unpopular, uncomfortable, and sometimes even unsafe. I love that Ginwright recommends using some of my favorite phrases like, I'm curious, or I'm feeling confused, or I'm afraid, or I'm feeling angry. Those phrases truly open our minds and the minds of others and have us be more open to solutions as well as to change. Brene Brown wrote a lot about vulnerability, and she said, the most courageous act is still to think for yourself aloud. The most courageous act is still to think for yourself aloud. Wow, can you imagine thinking aloud? How often do you step away from telling your truth out of fear, or because you're using the lens to define the world around you rather than the mirror inside, which is urging you to tell your truth? Of course, to tell your truth requires that you be clear on what it is you believe. In this journey from lens to mirror, Ginwright encourages self-reflection and truth-telling, and also tells us that clarity plays an important role. In the Lambus Bible, Matthew 7, 1-5, we read, why do you see the splinter which is in your brother's eye, and do not feel the beam which is in your own eye? O hypocrites, first take out the beam from your own eye, and then you will see clearly to get out the splinter from your brother's eye. In his chapter called Clarity, Ginwright talks about how we can't see clearly if we have something in our eyes. Sometimes those obstructions are not just little splinters or dust. They're full-on logs. And those logs are so huge that they obstruct our seeing things clearly. So we can't understand the situation. So it's important to heal our own traumas and any obstructions. We need clarity because that allows us to respond more powerfully, more compassionately, and more effectively. There was a farmer who plowed for years around a large rock in one of his fields. He had broken several plowshares and a cultivator on it, and had grown rather morbid about the rock. After breaking another plowshare one day and remembering all the trouble the rock had caused him throughout the years, he finally decided to do something about it. When he put the crowbar under the rock, he was surprised to discover it was only 6 inches thick, and that he could break it up easily with a sledgehammer. As he was carting away the pieces, he had a smile, remembering all the trouble that rock had caused him over the years and how easy it would have been to get rid of it sooner. I know that we all avoid things sometimes, and we spend a lot of time using workarounds rather than becoming clear about the issues. If we're going to do mirror work, it's time to commit to clarity on things we might have been avoiding. It's time to go dig up those rocks and hammer them away with that sledgehammer. I find that my gut usually is telling me when I'm unclear or not telling the whole truth. And I've learned to listen to that little inner nudge. Ginwright actually suggests some of the questions that we can ask ourselves to help. What is unclear? What am I not saying right now in this moment? Is my ego making this unclear? What do I fear most in this situation, and why do I fear it? What would my mentor do in this situation? I sometimes say, what would Jesus or Buddha do? I know for myself, sometimes the way I get clarity is just to breathe. or to do the walking meditation, that one that Gary Lynn Floyd talked about, where we put our left foot down and we say, I am. We put our right foot down and say, home. And we just keep doing that. I am home. I am home. Sometimes I find I just go get some exercise so I can feel like my body is responding better. I invite you to figure out for yourself what helps you get clarity and do it so you can be clear about who you are and what you believe. And so in summary, how might you truly move from lens to mirror this week? Remember, learn to pivot your awareness. Stop, notice, be aware of yourself and those around you. Maintain focus on your goal and calmly move toward it. And practice self-reflection and truth-telling. Have a sense of curiosity about what is under your hood. And ask, what is the truth of myself I have been avoiding? Finally, clarify your beliefs. Learn to listen to those inner nudges of discomfort. And ask, what do I fear most in this situation and why? So here's your affirmation for the week. How is it I so easily and willingly make one small change to be where I want to be, to cultivate the practice of self-reflection, and to remove any dust that clouds my clarity? And your challenge for the week is, when things become too noisy in one location, find a new one. And remember to be self-reflective. Look into the mirror of who you are and make one small change to more closely align with who you want to be. I invite you to check in a couple times each day and notice, is there any log in your eye keeping you from clearly seeing yourself and others? Let's pray. We take a deep, nourishing breath. And we just settle into that place, knowing that God is love and truth and integrity, laughter and joy, and peace and ease. And knowing all of that is exactly who we are as these individual stamps of expression of the divine. So what I know to be the truth is that this week we are indeed noticing how to be self-reflective, how to pivot, make that small pivot, and tell ourselves the truth and become totally clear about who we want to be and how we can get there. So I'm grateful for this opportunity to talk about this pivot from lens to mirror, to bring into our lives ways that we can truly become more of who we want to be. And it's from that gratitude that I release these words into the divine yes, knowing it's already done. So I say amen, and we can affirm it together. And so it is.